Where are the icebergs formed and how? The answer is as follows. In the interior of the Earth, where it's warm, rivers flow to the surface through the polar openings. When they reach the outside in the Arctic Circle, where it's very cold, the mouth of the river freezes, forming icebergs. This continues for months until, due to warmer weather in the summer and the warmth from the Earth, the icebergs are then thawed loose and washed into the ocean. The fact that icebergs are formed from fresh water, not salty ocean water, lends to its theory. Okay, stop on this one real quick. This is a very, very interesting website. It's called VoyageHollowEarth.com. Now, there was a man here, Steve Curry, who was leading an expedition. He actually got a nuclear Russian icebreaker, and they got it rented out, and they were actually going to travel to the North Pole, to the hole that goes into the interior of the Earth. Now, he tried to do this in 2005, yet he didn't get enough people to go. I think at the time they were charging close to $100,000. He was just trying to get, I don't know, like about 20 people at $100,000, and they didn't raise up enough money in order to pay for all the gas and everything that was going to take in order to get the icebreaker to the opening of the hollow Earth. Now, so then what he did was he said, well, let's change it. We're not going to charge so much this time. This time we'll just charge about $20,000, and we'll do it again in 2007. Now, go ahead and roll this. This gives a little bit of information here, about Steve Curry, the man who was actually got this icebreaker and was going to go. And this is actually from one of the second page trip information. But on the very first page, what you find out is, and this is very recent here, just within the past few months, Steve Curry has died. Now, I'm not saying there was foul play involved. However, I could not find out any information to his death. I actually emailed them to ask them information from his death, and the only information they wanted to give out was if I had been paying, if I was one of the persons who had actually paid money so they could see about getting the money back. So, the voyage to the hollow Earth on this icebreaker obviously has been canceled, and which is a shame, because there are very few people these days that are actually willing to take up this kind of quest or journey. And not only that, but it's very hard to get there. You just can't get in a plane and fly over the North Pole or the South Pole. That area is very restricted to flights. Let's see. Going back to some other of these questions, go ahead and let that roll. What causes colored snow in the Arctic region? Well, there's two causes. Red, green, and yellow snow are caused by vegetable matter permeating the air with such density that when it falls, it colors the snow with it. Also, this vegetable matter is supposed to be the blossom or pollen of a plant. As it does not grow on Earth, one can naturally believe that it grows in the interior and came out through the polar opening. Why is the Arctic ice filled, and if we could stop that one real quick. Why is the Arctic ice filled with rock, gravel, and sand? Well, because these substances come from an exploding volcano near where the iceberg is formed. Now, this is a picture of the planet Uranus, and as you can see, it's a thermal image, and you can see light emanating at the North Pole and at the South Pole. Where is this light coming from? Obviously, I would think that it's coming from the inside, and it is shining out, through the poles. This is basically the same phenomena that causes the aurora borealis here on Earth. Go ahead and roll that. And what we'll see here in the next few pictures are several of the planets here in our solar system that are demonstrating the same type of effect. I believe this is a picture of Venus here, and as you can see, a very, very large opening. Here are pictures of Jupiter, showing the same effect here. I tried to look and find out what the astronomers' explanation for these types of pictorial phenomena here, and I couldn't find anything. I'm sure if I looked a little bit harder, I would find somebody's theory of explanation of what this is. However, for me, and for the people who believe in hollow planets, we all know it's caused by interior suns. What you're looking at here is pictures of Saturn. This is another picture of Venus right here. As you can see, a very large hole here at the pole. I believe that's the South Pole. And what we looked at before was the Northern Pole. And this is another picture of Saturn. I believe it's the last picture in the series. So, there are a lot more information that I could give here. Unfortunately, this show is not as well produced as the earlier shows in this series or as the shows that are going to be following it. Just to talk a little bit more about the literary record, there are tons of authors who have talked about and examined the Hollow Earth. Here recently, in the past few years, the Lord of the Rings series has become very popular. And what you have to remember is that the whole story is set in the Hollow Earth. It's an Earth story. It's not some other distant planet. It's not the surface of the planet a long time ago. No, it takes place in the Hollow Earth. C.S. Lewis and his Chronicles of Narnia series, that series is set in the Hollow Earth. There are tons and tons of stories about the Hollow Earth. The Buddhists all believe that there are cities and inner earth races that live in the Hollow Earth. As a matter of fact, in Tibet is an entrance into the Hollow Earth that is one of the most famous entrances there. Supposedly leads from the surface all the way to the ruling city inside the earth, Shambhala, there. And that is a reason why some people speculate that Tibet is such an important country, and that's why China has decided that it's so important that they want to make sure that they are in control of this entrance into the Hollow Earth. What else am I going to talk about here? Let's see. Real quick about flying saucers here, and then I'm going to go ahead and take calls here for a lot of the show, just so people can catch up on what I've been talking about for the past few weeks. It's very interesting to note that before Admiral Byrd flew into the North Pole, and then again next year, I believe in '56, he flew into the North Pole in '54, and then a couple years later in '56 he flew into the South Pole. But his very first expedition to the North Pole was in the early '40s, and it was not until he took, a company of men. He was doing this as, working for the military. It was not until he made his first trip there to the North Pole that then, after that, flying saucers started to become very prevalent in modern history. I believe it was in '46 when he made a very, very short trip. Didn't fly too much in there. He was actually looking for the pole, the North Pole, just kind of like making an expedition there. They were just scouting it out, and they had, of course, you get the whole weird compass thing, and we'll talk about that in a couple of episodes about, why the compass acts funny near the poles. However, it was after that we started really seeing a lot more UFOs, flying saucers, things of that nature. Then, a few years later, when he got the go-ahead, that's, actually I think it was like 4 or 5 years later, maybe even 6, that's when he made a big fly into the opening there at the North Pole, 1,700 miles in the North Pole, and then a year and a half later, 2,400 miles into the South Pole.